In 2016, Boeing quietly deleted a critical safety system from the 737 MAX's pilot manual. And when that decision contributed to 346 deaths across 2 crashes, the CEO responsible walked away with $62 million, $0 criminal charges, and a formal board vote of thanks. They knew the system could fail. They shipped it anyway. So why has no one ever been held accountable? Boeing. For most of the 20th century, that name meant something. It meant the gold standard of commercial aviation, the company that built the planes that moved the world. Presidents flew on Boeing, militaries relied on it. When you buckled your seatbelt at 35,000 feet, Boeing was the reason you didn't think twice. The company cultivated that trust for decades. Safe skies, American engineering, rigorous testing. They weren't just selling planes, they were selling a promise. That was the brand. That was the story. And by 2011, they knew the story was slipping. Airbus had just launched the A320neo, a fuel-efficient redesign that was bleeding Boeing's market share. Airlines were defecting. So instead of building a new plane from scratch, Boeing did something cheaper. They bolted bigger engines onto the existing 737 frame, a design that first flew in 1968. The heavier engine sat further forward and changed how the plane handled. It pitched upward in ways pilots hadn't trained for. Boeing's own engineers flagged it. So Boeing built a software patch, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, MCAS, a program that automatically pushed the nose down when it sensed the plane climbing too steeply. Here's the decision that mattered. MCAS would rely on input from a single sensor. 1, not 2, not 3. 1 angle of attack sensor, no redundancy. And then they made a second decision. They would not tell pilots it existed. They removed it from the pilot manual entirely, not buried in a footnote, removed. The reason was money. Disclosing MCAS would have triggered mandatory simulator training requirements. Airlines would have spent millions retraining every qualified pilot. Southwest Airlines specifically asked Boeing whether the MAX would require simulator time. Boeing said no. Southwest saved an estimated $1 million per pilot. Boeing kept the contract. The FAA, the agency that exists to catch exactly this, approved the certification. But that's not even the part they really didn't want out. Boeing employees had been raising alarms internally for years. One engineer wrote in a 2018 internal message, "This airplane is designed by clowns who are in turn supervised by monkeys." That message sat on Boeing's servers while the plane entered commercial service. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta and disappeared into the Java Sea 12 minutes later. A faulty angle of attack sensor triggered MCAS. The pilots had no idea the system existed. All 189 people on board died. Boeing released a bulletin, not a grounding, a bulletin. It told pilots what MCAS was and how to disable it for the first time. 5 months later, on March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 went down under near-identical conditions. Another faulty sensor, another MCAS activation, another crew fighting a system they had never been trained on. 60 seconds of struggle captured on the flight data recorder. All 157 people on board died, 346 total. Now here's what Boeing had buried. In 2016, the company had conducted an internal safety analysis of MCAS that rated a malfunction as a potential catastrophic failure scenario. They knew. They also overstated the time pilots would have to respond to a runaway MCAS activation by a factor of 4 times longer than what was physically possible at altitude. That assessment went to the FAA. The FAA stamped it approved. And this is where the opening detail pays off. The angle of attack disagree alert, the warning light that would have told pilots when their sensor readings contradicted each other. Boeing had made it a paid upgrade. Optional, extra cost. Lion Air had not purchased it. In January 2021, the Department of Justice announced a settlement. Boeing would pay $2.5 billion, $243 million in fines, the rest in compensation funds and airline payments. Boeing would not be prosecuted, not the company. Not one executive. A deferred prosecution agreement. Maintain good behavior for 3 years and the charges disappear. CEO Dennis Muilenburg, who publicly insisted the MAX was safe even after the Lion Air crash, was fired in December 2019, and his exit package was worth $62.2 million. No trial, no charges. The congressional hearings produced sharp questions and 0 consequences. The FAA admitted it had delegated too much oversight authority to Boeing itself. Then it quietly returned that oversight authority back to Boeing. In 2024, the DOJ revisited the case. Families pushed for prosecution. A federal judge rejected Boeing's original immunity deal. Boeing was given a choice: go to trial or negotiate a new agreement. They negotiated. Again. The company that deleted MCAS from the manual relied on a single unverified sensor and built a safety warning only for customers willing to pay extra is still manufacturing the planes you fly on. The deferred prosecution model, the self-regulated FAA, the stock buyback culture that rewarded margin over engineering, all of it is still intact. Nobody went to prison. Nobody was charged. The only question worth asking now is whether the next revelation comes before or after the next crash.